What is PM 2.5? A lot of people don't even know what this term means. Imagine and air quality is, it kills 7 million people per year.
Yeah.
7 million people every year lose their lives due to air quality.
Yeah.
And people don't know what PM 2.5 is.
Tekha Selim is Executive Vice President at Delos and Head of MENA for the International Well-Building Institute, leading the wellness real estate movement across the region. He has helped major projects such as Expo 2020 and ADNOC adopt wellness standards, integrating circadian lighting, air purification, and biophilic design to support human health, longevity, and performance.
We're talking about the most precious thing for humanity. It's not how much money you make. It's not what position you have. It's your health. That is the most precious thing that we can fight for. And buildings are actually impacting our health and well-being.
Welcome, Tekha. It's a pleasure to have you with me today. And let me kick off by asking, what defines a healthy building to you?
Thank you so much for having me. I think that's a great question, and it's a broad question. And I think it's something that I definitely want to kind of emphasize the term healthy buildings. Because there are many times that you have organizations or you have different buildings that would do one aspect of a healthy building and they would claim that they're a healthy building. And I think that that is a very big word and term to actually put out there. Healthy buildings is a holistic approach to health and wellness, meaning that you should do everything from air quality, water quality, lighting, acoustics, nourishment, design. There are many, many things that you need to do within the built environment to actually be able to claim that you're healthy. It's not one part. It's not having, if you have a good air quality, what about water? If you have good water quality, what about acoustics? And until you get to a point where you have all of these things met inside a healthy building, then you can claim that you're a healthy building. Yeah. It's really I always say this. It's a roadmap. It's not a sprint, right? It's a lot of times people do something quickly. Whether that's improvement in lighting, and you'll see all the reports out there and press releases. We are a healthy building. We are this percent. We are this and that. And I think until you have a holistic approach of what it means to have a healthy building, then you can actually go out and claim that you are a healthy or a real healthy building.
Do you see a lot of development in companies, people driving the concept of creating a healthy building here in the Middle East?
There are a lot. I've seen the shift. There are a lot of buildings right now that are actually doing the right thing for their people. And I think there is a pressure from tenants on landlords. There's a pressure from the government on these buildings, because the governments are kind of putting all of these agendas and all of these regulations in place for a reason. And now the developers and the owners need to actually do the right thing to actually create healthy buildings. So we are absolutely seeing the shift. We're seeing the shift of buildings doing the right thing for people and for the planet.
And do you see that actually in particular types of buildings, or is it across the entire built environment?
We are seeing it in a percentage of buildings that are actually, unfortunately, people right now are only thinking about ROI, right? Every time you talk to people about healthy buildings, the first thing that you'll hear is what is the ROI? What is my return on investment? And my answer to this is, what about ROH? What is the return on health? Which is something that you can't really buy with money, right? And a lot of times people are not thinking of what do they get back on their health. So we are seeing the shift on certain buildings, a certain number of buildings. But is it enough? I wouldn't say so. It's growing. I came here about 5 years ago when I started talking about health and well-being, and even as a part of our organization, we did not have that many projects. I used to talk to people about the importance of wellness, the importance of healthy buildings, and people would look at me and be like, what is that? Is that yoga? Are you in massage? What is wellness?
Yeah.
And thanks to COVID, and it took a pandemic for people to actually understand that this is not a nice to have, but a must have. It made people understand that what we touch matters, what we breathe matters, how we gather indoors matters, and it really made people understand that the built environment is crucial to our health and well-being. I mean, we spend over 90% of our times indoors. I believe in this part of the world, we spend over 98% of our times indoors. Whether that's our homes, our offices, our schools, our hotels, we're always trapped inside boxes. And these boxes that we call real estate are truly impacting our health and well-being.
Yeah. And do you see that then as a discussion with existing buildings in retrofit conversations, or is it new build in particular that is already taking that into account during the design?
Both. We're seeing both. We're seeing organizations and buildings that are pretty old, and they actually want to do the right thing, and they get into the retrofitting and doing certain things to actually be able to achieve, some of the certifications that exist within the well building standard or any of these healthy building certifications. But we're also seeing organizations that have learned that retrofit is not cheap. It's when you have a building that is not built to actually do the right thing for people and to put people first, it's going to cost you money. And it might cost you a lot. But when you do it early on from a conceptual design point of view, anyways, you're going to need an HVAC. Anyways, you're going to need lights. Anyways, you're going to need these essential things that is needed inside the built environment. But now, why not get the right ones? Why not get the ones that will actually support people's health and well-being? So when you start early on, first of all, it's way more cost effective. It's much cheaper than waiting until design is completed, building is ready, building is operational. When you do it early on, it's just much better for you. You're doing the right thing. You're putting your people first, and you're saving so much money when you're doing it early on.
So who needs to be at the table, basically, when all these discussions take place, either all the way at the beginning in the design, but maybe even later if you do elect to retrofit a little bit? Are there specific people in the organization that need to be there early on?
Everyone needs to be there. The owners needs to be there. Policymakers needs to be there. Designers needs to be there. Everyone needs to be on the table when it comes to health. And this is something that not many people are talking about. We're talking about the most precious thing for humanity. It's not how much money you make. It's not what position you have. It's not where you're at, where you're living, what power. It's your health. That is the most precious thing that we can fight for. And buildings are actually impacting our health and well-being. So if you're asking me who needs to be on the table, every single person needs to be on the table, from, as I mentioned, developers, owners, operators, landlords, governments, policymakers. Everyone needs to come together to actually ensure that people are doing the right thing in these boxes that we're spending the majority of our lives in.
And do you believe that there is enough time spent to understand what the impact is? Let's take, for example, just an office building, on the impact it has on employees, and in particular absenteeism at a later stage when you're operational? Or do you believe there is still a long way to go to really incorporate that in the thinking?
There will be a learning curve that needs to happen, right? But we are seeing now more and more buildings and more organizations that are doing the right thing. Prior to COVID, the International Wellbeing Institute had projects across 600 million square feet. Today, we are nearly at 6 billion square feet. And that kind of tells you that the adoption is there. People are starting to do the right thing. But what does 6 billion represent in the entire it's a very small portion. So as it relates to your question with employees and commercial offices, and there are many case studies that actually shows that healthy buildings help with absenteeism, better productivity, better satisfaction. There are many, many case studies that have been done with some of the Fortune 500 clients globally, some of the organizations that have actually looked at this pre and post. So there are many, many case studies that actually supports the fact that when you do the right thing for your people, when you put them first, they're going to give you the best. They're going to be productive. They're going to, have the sense of belonging of this organization. Because we spend, again, even when you're in the workplace, you spend at least 8 hours of your day in this place. And if I know that my employer, if I know that my organization is doing the right thing for me, and they do care about the most important thing for me, which is my health, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give it back. I'm going to do the same thing for this organization and put them first as they are putting me first.
So there's your ROI, basically.
Absolutely. This is and again, if we're able to, one of the things that I say, and people don't like me to say this, I don't like to have these conversations with CFOs. And the reason for that is that everything needs to make sense to them. They need to put it on an Excel file. And, I put $1, I want to see how much it was. There is no formula. Sometimes there is no formula. I don't need to prove to you. If I'm sitting with someone or an organization that all they think about is, okay, show me if I put $1 here, how much am I going to get back? If that is all you think about, I don't want to have this conversation with you.
No.
Because that means that you don't want to put your people first. That means that you really don't care about your organization and you don't care about yourself. Even you as a CFO, you are spending the majority of your time in this office and in this space. You should actually start thinking of how buildings are impacting your health and well-being. And I think a part of it is there is not enough education as it relates to how air quality impact my, cognitive performance, or lighting impact my sleep, or there is not enough education there. So people just treat this as okay, I need to understand. I put $1 here. How much am I going to get? How much am I going to get back? And if this is the conversation, I always say this, maybe it's not the right time. We'll talk later. We'll talk later. If I need to prove to you the importance of your people's health, then maybe it's not a good conversation to have.
Yeah, because you see in the market, obviously, quite a big drive on sustainability in general. And sustainability is obviously linked to making certain things much more efficient, switch out the lights to LED, become a little bit smarter with sensors, work on your HVAC system, all of these beautiful things. And there are obviously standards for all these different approaches that you could take, LEED, BREEAM, WELL. But the human aspect, the impact it has, is often really still put aside because it is less tangible. How do you overcome that? Because the educational component is important, as you say.
Absolutely. So I believe that they're all connected. Meaning that many people want to use the term sustainability, and many times, and a lot of times, people are saying environmental sustainability. But what about human sustainability? Planetary health is dependent upon economic health, which is dependent on human health. If we don't have healthy people, we're not going to be able to achieve anything for the planet. And that's just the reality. The most important thing, and I'm not being biased here, I'm being biased to humanity. The most important thing on this planet are the people. And how I overcome this is just by educating people. I think everything comes from education. Educate. As I mentioned again, when I first came here, people were looking at this as, this is yoga, this is massage, this is not important. And just by education and convincing people to do the right thing, and showing people the data, and showing people the research, and showing people that this is science-backed, and there is some of the top medical institutions around the world that is actually showing you that these buildings are harming you. This is not, to your point, this is not an amenity. This is a necessity. This is not a nice to have anymore. These buildings and the air quality that or the air that we're forced to breathe inside buildings, one of the most crucial topics that is overlooked, the air quality inside buildings is a killer. That's just the reality. And we have to understand that this is a reality. It will not impact you after, 2 months, 3 months, but you're spending time inside your home and inside some of these offices for years, and this build up is shown by research to actually be impacting our health and well-being and causing some of the worst diseases that anyone can think of. And most of us actually start acting after we get the disease. We are in the preventative health sector, if you will. We're in the preventative health business. And many people usually start acting and usually start doing things when they get sick. But what about preventing disease? What about preventing, some of these lung cancers and some of these kidney disease and lung disease and liver disease that are linked to the amount of time that we spend inside?
So, but how does that work then? A lot of people are focused on, say, the design of a building, and it has to look good and it has to look clean. All these things are important. But a building is there to exist for a long time. And technology moves forward, building gets older. In this climate over here, it is pretty harsh and it's difficult to maintain. So what's the role of the daily operations in maintaining basically all the systems of importance to maintain a healthy environment?
They play a crucial role. And to your point, technology will continue to evolve and different products will continue to evolve. And I think they have a crucial role to educate themselves. And again, I will mention the term education and educate many, many times during this podcast because I think it's very, very important. Their role is to stay up and train themselves on the latest technologies, on the latest operational policies that needs to be in place. But I think we're talking about things that you can just do with any type of technology. Improving air quality. Just adding a little filter in there in your HVAC, or using the right cleaning products. Which is a very, very important one. Many people don't even think. I started, kind of like realizing the importance of cleaning products after I started installing sensors in my own home. And, when, we're cleaning at home and you look at these sensors and you see all of these parameters rising to the roof. It's like, what exactly is happening? And we are inhaling and breathing these cleaning products every single day. So operational people, maintenance people have to stay updated, have to get the right training, and they should be with their leadership team in all of these organizations. They should enforce the right trainings, the right educational materials to them so that they can always stay up to date and do the right thing for this building and to ensure that it's clean, it's well maintained, it's designed well, and then you're just adopting, as technologies evolve, you can adopt what is there.
And when you talk about education, I think one of the strengths here in the region is that it is a very diverse population. We have many, many cultures from all over the world, but each of us have their own sort of like cultural upbringing that comes with you. And your perspective on what healthy is or what clean is or what good or bad is, that is not necessarily aligned. How do you overcome those sort of like hurdles in conversations to educate basically the importance of healthy buildings?
You design, and if we're talking about culture, you just need to understand that, and it's a very good point. You need to understand that each country and each part of the world has its own things and all culture that we all have to respect and adhere to. I think looking at the Middle East, for example, we are it's a very harsh climate, right? 50 degrees Celsius. That's very hot. We were just talking about this before the podcast. Very, very hot. And even when you're designing, sometimes people are thinking of, okay, if I want to incorporate wellness, I have to do certain things outdoors, or I have to do, just make people connect to nature outside. You have to just know that in certain places, this is not possible. And then you start thinking of, okay, if I'm unable to do this due to X, Y, and Z, climate, for example, then I need to adhere with this. People here in every space, they, praying rooms are very important. So you have to adhere that this is something that people needs to do and you have to start designing based on what the culture is telling you, based on the climate, based on what the space is actually requiring. And this is one of the things that I believe early on with the well building standard version 1. It was really designed, and some of the other certifications still have these problems until now because they were designed and built for the US. And when they started incorporating them in other parts of the world, they're like, I can't do that. It's just not possible for me, which is why, by the way, we came out with version 2, which is more flexible. We have what we would call AAPs, Alternative Adherence Path, and you have to be flexible enough to meet people's culture, to your point, to meet people's requirements based on where they're at. And if you're just saying, and same with technology companies, right? They build it in the US and they just expect that this is how it works anywhere all over the world. And it doesn't work like that way. I mean, cars here, we have the GCC specs. It's the similar as cars, right? You have the American specs, you have the GCC specs. And guess what? GCC specs, it could be the same exact car. GCC specs is double the price. Why? Because it's built, it's designed for this part of the world. And I think there should be more and more organizations, more and more people, and thank you actually for doing this, more and more people actually on the same table that are building and doing things that are appropriate for this part of the world.
No, and I think that the aspect of localization and flexibility in how you do certain things is a very important point. When you look at the Middle East, is there any project that you worked on or you've seen out there, whether or not certified is not important, that you say that is a hallmark of a building or organization that embodies basically what I believe what a healthy building should look like?
You're putting me in trouble now because I have to mention a few clients, and then others might be a little upset. But I will mention a few.
Or no clients.
I will mention. There is one that is actually called Vincitor. I think it's they are doing the right thing. They're walking the talk. Beautifully designed building that is actually meeting real health and well-being. And I remember I attended the inauguration and the opening of this building, and their CEO, Veer, said something that stuck with me. He said, we don't charge dirhams per square feet. We charge wellness per square feet.
Okay.
And that was an interesting concept and an interesting statement to be able to say. And they are doing the right thing. They have a salt cave inside. It's a residential building, a salt cave inside there. Different walking tracks, sound healing rooms, and really they have done the right thing. Another one is
but that's quite upmarket, I guess, with all the amenities that you name, or is it still achievable?
You would be surprised.
Okay.
Their pricing are very reasonable. Very reasonable.
Yeah, interesting.
You'd be surprised. I was surprised as well. I thought that, okay, this is for the luxury, this is for the rich, this is for very reasonable pricing. And they're doing the right thing. And I think Veer and his father, Mr. VJ, they really believe in this. They were born into wellness. They believe in this and they want to kind of like continue this legacy. And we commend them for this. Another project is a tower called Tranquil. Tranquil Wellness Towers, where they are also having about 7 different floors of different wellness amenities. Inside the rooms themselves, they have the Stay Well program, which is all types of air purification, circadian lighting, vitamin C in the shower head. They've gone the extra mile to actually do the right thing. But more importantly, and I think this is something that I'm super proud of, we have been working with the Dubai Land Department for, I'd say, about 10 months. Just convincing, working with the different leadership team there and seeing them take one of the well programs and incorporate it as a part of the RIRA ranking. That was a huge thing for me because that shows that the government cares. They don't need to do that.
No.
It's the government. But they looked at the program, studied the program, looked at the value for the jointly owned properties in Dubai, and they have added and incorporated the well health safety rating, which is an operational certification, and they've added it as a part of the RERA ranking. And that was a proud moment to see that governments are actually doing the right thing, and they care about the right things for buildings and for people.
Yeah.
And here in this part of the world, and you know this, when governments are actually doing something or pushing for something, everyone else follows. And that was definitely a proud moment for us to see that a government is actually adopting one of the programs and adding it to a lot of jointly owned properties.
So I need to see that as a sort of like an extra element in the labeling at a property level. It gives them basically
Correct.
a better rating,
Correct.
so to speak.
That's correct. So if you do, they give it, they have the RERA ranking, which are different criterias and categories. If you achieve the health safety rating, that is like 10 or 15 points towards the full RERA ranking, which means that you are a better building, you're ranked better, which is an awesome thing for the government to do.
Yeah, and I think you're right. If the and I'm also not really a kind of individual looking for the stick, so to speak. The government has to come up with all kinds of negative repercussions if you don't do certain things, but it rather positively enforces that you do certain things. And there is, of course, and especially since COP28, a huge drive on the sustainability side, albeit a little bit more environmental focused. I think more and more clients that we work with are very, very conscious about the quality of their buildings and how they are, in our case, then maintained over a period of time. What kind of technologies do you see already here or nearby on the horizon that will help us really in that whole educational process, but also in the day-to-day management of health and well-being that stand out for you at the moment?
Anything that could be informative. So anything that could passively take actions on your behalf without requiring behavioral change. Because behavioral change is one of the most difficult things that we can achieve, right? You can do certain things and educate people to do certain things, but in order for you to make people change behavior, that's very, very difficult. So technologies that are out there, where you are able to have certain algorithms, for example, that is being linked and connected to certain standards, regulations, whatever it may be, and passively take actions based on your behalf. I think this is where the future is, because I believe that, one day you will be sitting in your home and you don't need to worry about when you're cooking at 3 p.m., you don't need to worry about any of the particulates that come, because you have technology, in your home or installed in your office or whatever it may be, that is actually able to understand what is happening. It's linked to the right things and it's taking actions passively on your behalf. This is the future, that I don't need to do anything. Many technologies today that exist, monitors, even air purifiers or any of the technologies that we have. It tells you air quality is bad. And then what?
Yeah.
Okay, now I need to go and put it on turbo mode or do certain things that usually you don't do. But if you are able to monitor and have the right platforms and the right technology in place that will be able to take actions on your behalf, and that could become an information platform, meaning that these technologies are educating you. Hey, 3 days out of the week, PM 2.5 was X, Y, and Z. This means in terms that the general public can understand, not the technical data that a few people understand. How can you translate the very technical data into something that the general public can understand? And that way, behavioral change becomes easier. Because now you're educated. Now I know that PM 2.5 can do X, Y, and Z to my lungs. Now I need to be doing the right thing. But right now, no one knows. If many people don't even know what's PM 2.5.
Yeah.
They look at me as like, what is that? It's like what is PM 2.5? A lot of people don't even know what this term means. Imagine and air quality is, it kills 7 million people per year.
Yeah.
7 million people every year lose their lives due to air quality.
Yeah.
And people don't know what PM 2.5 is.
Yeah. So then for the listeners or people that watch the podcast, explain what 2.5 is.
PM, it's the small little particulate matters that we don't see, that your eyes don't see. And this could be from sand, it could be from different chemicals. It's the small little particulates that our eyes do not see.
Because the interesting bit is that when we speak to clients and we're talking about eliminating the use of chemicals in any kind of cleaning, we sometimes get actually the answer back, but I can't smell anything after this is used. So, but that is not the point. Clean is something different from smelling clean. And by the way, the human brain is fooled very easily. If I smell citrus, then I think something is clean, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. We are only introducing VOCs to the environment that we're working in or living in. When you look at those technologies, and I do agree with you. Right now, we are still in the phase that something is being monitored. It is not actioned per se. And in some cases, by the way, where that can be fully automated, corrective or passive action can be taken by a system, that probably is possible. There is still a human aspect involved as well. I mean, something beeps.
Which on this point, and I think it's very important to, and I'm sorry to cut you off on this. What you are mentioning is automation.
Yeah.
If X happens, this is automation. But this is system to system. The majority of the technology companies out there are focusing on making sure that the systems work.
Yeah.
If this happens, make sure that the fire alarm goes on. This is automation. But this is not intelligence. There is a big, huge difference between automation, which is if I do this, turn on light, if I do these actions and logics, do these things, this is just pure automation. But intelligence and machine learning and and now with the era of AI, being able to predict and take predictive AI measurements, if certain things are happening over a course of days, make sure you do. This is intelligence. And to your point, majority of the automation is just designed so that systems can work for convenience, but nothing yet is designed for your lungs, for your cardiovascular health, for your immune health, for your circadian rhythm. Nothing is designed for that yet. And that's what we believe the future is bright with what could be done and how we can use AI to actually do the right things for people and for their health and well-being.
Yeah, and I think that is very true. I mean, there are so many opportunities coming towards us to become a lot smarter in the way we go about certain things. I don't see that as a threat either. I think it is a big benefit to all of us to manage indoor environments, health, and all that. Where do you see the trend going in the Middle East? Because I like to focus on the region that we're in, obviously. With a relatively young population, by the way, in most countries around us, do you think that the demand for healthy buildings will actually exponentially increase over the upcoming years?
Absolutely. And personally, I say this with full confidence of someone that came to a country by himself, 0 projects to 1 billion square feet. People here, when they see the right thing and they make sure that it's the right thing for them, they will do it. No matter how much it costs, they just want to make sure that this is the right thing. And I see the shift of many developers now that are actually thinking of these things, what technology do I need to use to make sure that my people are healthy? What certifications do I need to achieve that I make sure that environmental part is taken care of, but also the human part is taken care of? And I think also a part of that is competition.
Yeah.
You have many developers, lots of constructions going on, demand and supply, like how am I going to be able to attract people to come to my development versus my competition?
Yeah.
And many people are actually using this now to do the right thing, to actually say, I have, and you'll see a lot of kind of like press releases out there, I am 20% better air quality than the area, or I have
Sure.
the best technology X, Y, and Z, and the reason they're doing this is that the competition is very high. It's very difficult now to convince person A to come and live in an MR development versus a DMAC development versus a Shoba development. There are many developers. They all look similar from inside. They all pretty much have the same amenities. What will drive me to actually take a decision to invest with X developer versus Y developer? And I definitely see the change in trends, even ESG. We're seeing now people are, believe it or not, thinking of, okay, I want to make sure that when I'm reporting on my ESG, I'm doing the right thing, especially for the S. Environmental, I'm taking care of, but the social part, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of that. And I think it's a big part of the shift. And you just mentioned the cleaning example. Now we are also even seeing people that are more educated, that sometimes even if it's, a product smells good, that doesn't mean that it's good for you.
No.
And the reason I say that is that we're seeing now developers that are incorporating and adding certain sensors, and they are educating themselves on these things. So the shift is happening. It will continue to grow. The movement of the healthy building movement will continue to grow. And I don't see this stopping in the next 5, 7, 10 years. It will just continue to grow until this becomes the norm. It's not called healthy buildings anymore. This is the normal buildings. And people will say, do you remember when one day we lived in a home without any type of technology, without any type of sensors, with using all of these types of cleaning products, and no one really knew about the impacts of health? Because once you know, it's very difficult to not know. Once you're educated and once you see that these buildings and homes are doing the right thing for you, it just becomes very difficult for you to live elsewhere.
But it also requires basically a certain level of data collection, metrics, and analysis on what's trending, basically. What are sort of like, in your mind, the key metrics that building owners should worry about?
PM 2.5.
Yeah.
Very important. Air quality is a crucial, very important one. CO2, VOCs. I think those are 3 main ones that you should actually. And then also you have lighting metrics and acoustics, which is overlooked. Noise levels inside buildings really impact our mental well-being and has a huge impact on people's health and well-being in general. So I would say PM 2.5, PM10, CO2, VOCs, and definitely if you're able to get into lighting and other elements, it's important. Those are ones that you want to make sure that they are within optimal levels. And not only developers, even when you're looking at schools. I mean, all of these classrooms and the data is out there, and put a sensor in any classroom today and watch the CO2 levels. 30 kids breathing together. You have certain kids that are, coming sick, not proper ventilation. And CO2 is, linked to brain fog and sleepy kids where you want them to be alert, you want them to be focused. And so I think those are some of the metrics that I would focus on. And also it depends on what sector you are operating in. But those are the ones that are no question about them. You have to absolutely look at them.
Yeah, but I think in any case, the obvious residential, commercial buildings, office and schools, those are the obvious 3 to focus on. Government buildings, I guess, included.
Absolutely. I think, and that's the dream. I think we should look at every building.
Yeah.
we should look at every box that exists. If you're like kind of like driving on Sheikh Zayed Road, looking right and left, every building should do the right thing, because every building has someone that is living inside of them. It could be our friends, it could be our family, it could be our relatives, and these buildings are unfortunately negatively impacting our health and well-being. So every building should do the right thing, and whether that's starting with the most crucial thing, which is air quality, or whether that's looking at water quality, or just doing something. Because once you start, just start the journey somewhere. Don't worry about, I mean, even when you look at the certifications, like WELL certifications, for example, you need to do a lot of things, which is the holistic approach that I spoke about, to be able to get certified. But that's not your only way to get to be healthy. Start somewhere. Do something with air quality. Do something with water quality. Look at acoustics. Just start somewhere. And then naturally, you will start improving and getting better over time.
So as a final question, what does it mean to you then to have a healthy green mind?
To have a healthy green mind, it means that I am doing all the right things for me as an individual. From mental well-being, from making sure that I'm sleeping properly, from making sure that I'm using the right wearables that are actually telling me the right things and how I could improve on certain elements, and also doing the right thing for the planet. Being responsible for the planet. And there are stuff that a lot of times people say, like, do you think I'm going to be able to change the climate change? But if everyone says this, we'll never get anywhere. So just doing what you can. When you're in the bathroom, instead of leaving the tap of the water open, turned on, just turn it off. Instead of drinking from plastic, get a water filter. Just these little small things to do to show that you're responsible for the planet, and not to forget that your health and your well-being is the most important thing. So exercise, diet, sleeping properly, having the right wearables, and that's what it means to me to have a healthy and green mind.
Thank you, Tekha, for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.